Before I tell you this story, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever been bullied at work, if you've ever had a boss who made your life hell, if you've ever dreamed of getting revenge on someone who destroyed your mental health for years, I need you to hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that justice is possible. Comment below with just one word, justice, because what you're about to hear will restore your faith in karma. This isn't just another workplace drama story. This is about how I, Elliot, a 42-year-old severance negotiator in Los Angeles, turned 15 years of sexual harassment, stolen credit, and psychological torture into the most devastating professional revenge you've ever heard. My boss thought they had broken me. They thought wrong. What they didn't know was that I had a secret weapon worth $5.3 million, and I was about to use it to destroy everything they'd built. The conference room at Meridian Financial Group's Los Angeles headquarters had floor-to-ceiling windows that should have made me feel free. Instead, they made me feel like I was in a fishbowl, constantly on display for my tormentors' amusement. It was January 2010 when I first walked into that building as a bright-eyed severance negotiator, fresh from my success at a smaller firm. I thought I'd made it. God, how wrong I was. My name is Elliot, and for 15 years, I lived in hell. Not the dramatic, obvious kind of hell that makes headlines, but the slow, insidious kind that eats away at your soul, one degrading comment, one wandering hand, one stolen idea at a time. Victoria Chen was already a legend in the severance negotiation world when I joined her team. Impeccably dressed, Harvard MBA, connections that reached into every major corporation from here to New York. She was brilliant, charismatic, and as I would soon learn, a master manipulator who viewed her employees not as people, but as toys for her amusement. Elliot, she said on my first day, her voice honey-sweet as she circled my desk like a shark. Such an interesting name. Gender neutral. I like that. Makes it harder for people to prejudge you based on silly things like whether you're a man or woman. Her hand brushed my shoulder, lingering just a second too long. Though between us, I always know exactly what I'm dealing with. That should have been my first warning. But I was ambitious, eager to learn from the best. In negotiations, the key is to frame requests properly. Given my tenure and performance, I believe an extension of benefits or an increased payout would be fair. Victoria had written the book on severance negotiation, literally. Her techniques were studied in business schools. Working under her was supposed to be my golden ticket. The harassment started small. Comments about my appearance. That outfit makes you look accessible, she'd say, loud enough for others to hear. Unnecessary touches, a hand on my lower back guiding me into meetings, fingers trailing across my hand when passing documents. I documented everything in a small notebook I kept locked in my car, never at my desk. Even then, some part of me knew I'd need evidence someday. The financial abuse started 3 months in. I'd spent weeks preparing a negotiation strategy for a major tech company's layoffs, analyzing tenure factors, company policies, and precedents to maximize severance packages for 200 employees. The presentation was flawless. We secured an additional $3.2 million in total severance payments beyond the initial offer. Victoria presented my work to the board as her own. When I tried to speak up, she pulled me aside. Elliot, sweetie, she said, her nails digging into my arm. This is how mentorship works. You do the work, I get the credit, and eventually, you'll get your turn. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to go back to that little strip mall office you came from? According to a 2022 study by the Myers-Briggs Company, 36% of people reported dealing with conflict at work often, with poor communication being the #1 cause of conflict. But this wasn't poor communication. This was calculated abuse. I started keeping detailed records. Every project I worked on, I'd email myself copies from my personal email, creating a timestamp. Every interaction with Victoria, I'd document in that notebook. Date, time, witnesses, exact quotes when I could remember them. The notebook became my lifeline, proof that I wasn't going crazy, that this was really happening. By year 2, the pattern was established. I'd develop innovative negotiation strategies, create detailed analysis reports, identify leverage points that others missed. Victoria would present them as her own, collecting bonuses that should have been mine. The few times I tried to claim credit, she'd gaslight me in front of others. Elliot seems confused about their contributions, she'd say with a concerned smile. Perhaps the stress is getting to them. The sexual harassment escalated gradually, like a frog being boiled alive. Inappropriate comments became propositions. You know, Elliot, I could make your career if you were just a little more cooperative. When I declined her advances, the retaliation was swift. Suddenly, I was assigned the worst clients, the impossible deadlines, the cases everyone knew were doomed to fail. But here's the thing about being a severance negotiator: you learn how power works. You learn about how everything is negotiable and which elements can be discussed, including severance pay, extended healthcare benefits, and timing. You understand leverage, documentation, and most importantly, patience. Every insult, every theft, every moment of harassment, I documented it all. What Victoria didn't know was that I wasn't just documenting her abuse. I was studying her methods, her connections, her weaknesses. Like a chess player thinking 20 moves ahead, I was building something. She thought she was breaking me down. In reality, she was teaching me exactly how to destroy her. One evening in 2015, 5 years into my torment, I discovered something that would change everything. While reviewing contracts for a routine severance negotiation, I noticed a pattern in the billing. Victoria was charging clients for my hours at senior partner rates while paying me a junior associate salary. The difference? Over $400,000 per year. That was just the beginning of what I would uncover. The discovery came by accident, as the best revelations often do. I was working late one night in October 2018, 8 years into my employment at Meridian. Victoria had dumped a massive acquisition deal on my desk at 4 p.m., demanding a complete severance package analysis for 500 employees by morning. It was impossible, but that was the point. She wanted me to fail. The office was empty except for the cleaning crew. I liked Carlos, the night janitor. He was one of the few people who treated me like a human being. "Working late again, Elliot?" he asked in his gentle voice. "That woman, she drives you too hard." "It's fine, Carlos," I lied, rubbing my exhausted eyes. "Just part of the job." He shook his head and moved on, but not before accidentally knocking over a box of old files Victoria had left by the shredder. Papers scattered everywhere. As I helped him pick them up, one document caught my eye. It was a client contract from 2012, but the billing structure was different from what I'd been told. Much different. Typically, an employee's time at a company acts as a baseline for severance calculations, with 1 to 4 weeks per year being standard. But this contract showed something else entirely: a complex bonus structure tied to successful negotiations, percentages that should have been flowing to the negotiator who actually did the work. Me. I photocopied everything before Carlos could finish vacuuming the hallway. That night began a 3-year investigation that would have made forensic accountants proud. Using my knowledge of the company's systems and my access to client files, I began piecing together the full scope of Victoria's theft. It wasn't just my work she was stealing; she had been systematically defrauding the company and its clients for over a decade. Here's what I found. The billing fraud: Victoria was billing clients for senior partner consultations that never happened. She'd charge for 20 hours of her time at $750 per hour while having me do the actual work. The total over 15 years? $2.3 million in fraudulent billing. The bonus theft: every successful negotiation triggered performance bonuses. Victoria had altered the internal reporting to show herself as the primary negotiator on all my cases. My estimated stolen bonuses: $1.8 million. The package leverage power: this was the smoking gun. In the world of severance negotiation, there's something called package leverage power, essentially, the ability to influence the total payout based on insider knowledge of company weak points. Victoria had been secretly negotiating side deals with companies, taking kickbacks to minimize severance packages for laid-off employees while appearing to fight for them. She'd then use the saved money to negotiate higher fees for herself. The amount she'd skimmed through this scheme: $1.2 million. The total value of her theft and fraud: $5.3 million. But I needed more than just financial evidence. I needed to prove the hostile work environment, the sexual harassment, the systematic abuse. That's where my notebook became invaluable. 15 years of detailed documentation. Times, dates, witnesses, exact quotes. I had recordings too, legal in California as long as I was part of the conversation. Victoria's voice, clear as day, propositioning me, threatening me, admitting to stealing my work. Seeking legal counsel is often useful if severance packages feel complicated, and sometimes companies are more willing to negotiate when lawyers are involved. I consulted with 3 different employment attorneys, all outside Victoria's network. Each one told me the same thing: I had one of the strongest cases they'd ever seen. But I didn't want to just win a lawsuit. I wanted to destroy her the way she'd tried to destroy me. And I knew exactly how to do it. The plan required patience. I couldn't let her know what I'd discovered. So I continued to endure. Every degrading comment, every stolen project, every moment of harassment, I smiled and took it, all while building my case. I learned from the example of you/everybody's therapist on Reddit, who carefully labeled all their equipment before their company tried to fire them, then took everything that was theirs when told to, leaving the company unable to function. I started my own labeling system. Every document I created, every strategy one developed, every client relationship I built, I documented my ownership meticulously. Email trails, timestamp evidence, even photographic proof of my work in progress. Victoria thought she was stealing from a victim. She was actually stealing from someone building a meticulous legal case. The most satisfying part? I used her own techniques against her. In negotiations, employers often say this is our standard package, but the correct response is, I understand, but given my situation and extensive contributions throughout all these years, I'd like to explore adjustments that are fair for both sides. I began planting seeds with key clients, subtly letting them know who was really handling their negotiations. Victoria is brilliant at delegation, I'd say with a smile during client calls she wasn't on. She trusts me completely with your account. Plant the seed. Water it with excellent work. Watch it grow into doubt about who was really providing the value. By 2023, I had everything I needed. Financial evidence of fraud. Documentation of sexual harassment that would make HR textbooks. Proof of stolen intellectual property. Witness statements from colleagues who'd seen the abuse but been too scared to speak up. And most importantly, I had something Victoria never expected: leverage over her entire career. March 15, 2024. The date is burned into my memory like a brand. It was the day Victoria finally pushed me too far, the day 15 years of careful control shattered into pure, calculated rage. The morning started like any other in my personal hell. I arrived at 6:30 a.m. to finish the Henderson Industries severance proposal, a massive downsizing that would affect 1,200 employees across 6 states. I'd been working on it for 3 months, developing an innovative strategy that would secure an average of 40% more severance than the company's initial offer. It was my masterpiece, the culmination of everything I'd learned. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:45, Victoria called me into her office. Change of plans, Elliot, she said, not looking up from her phone. I'll be presenting to Henderson alone. You're not needed. But I created the entire strategy, I said, my voice steady despite the fury building inside me. I've been working with their HR team for months. She looked up then, a cruel smile playing at her lips. And you've done adequate work. But this is a senior-level presentation. The clients expect someone with gravitas. You understand. Adequate. 15 years of carrying her career on my back, and she called my work adequate. I'd like to at least be in the room, I said. To answer any technical questions. That won't be necessary. She stood, smoothing her $3,000 dress. Oh, and Elliot? I'm going to need you to stay late tonight. The Jameson files need reorganizing. Alphabetically this time. The Jameson files were from 2011. She was having me do busy work while she presented my career-defining project. But that wasn't the breaking point. Not yet. The breaking point came at 4:17 p.m., when Robert from IT forwarded me an email by mistake. It was from Victoria to the Henderson Industries CEO. I'm pleased to present my innovative severance strategy that I've developed over the past several months. This groundbreaking approach represents my unique vision for your company's transition. My. Not a single mention of my name. Not even a token acknowledgement. Complete erasure. I sat at my desk, staring at that email, feeling something inside me finally snap. But it wasn't the wild, uncontrolled snap of someone losing their mind. It was the precise, clean snap of a trap being set. According to recent data, hostile work environment settlements averaged $53,200 in 2024, but settlements vary significantly based on factors like severity, duration, and impact on the victim. Victoria had no idea she was about to become the highest-paying settlement in Meridian's history. I opened my personal laptop and began composing an email I'd drafted 100 times in my head. The recipient list was extensive, the entire board of directors. Every major client. The Department of Labor. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And, because I believe in thorough destruction, every major legal publication and business journalist in Los Angeles. But I didn't send it. Not yet. First, I needed her to complete the theft. The Henderson meeting was a success, of course. My strategy was brilliant, even delivered by someone who didn't understand its nuances. The client signed immediately, agreeing to a severance package that would cost them $47 million but save them from potential lawsuits and maintain their reputation. Victoria's commission on the deal would be $2.8 million. She was glowing when she returned, actually humming as she walked past my desk. "Oh, Elliot," she called out, false sweetness dripping from her voice. "Could you be a dear and write up the implementation notes for the Henderson deal? I promised them a full brief by Monday. I'm sure you can figure out the details from my presentation materials." Her presentation materials. My work. My ideas. My innovation. "Of course, Victoria," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I'll handle everything." She paused, perhaps sensing something different in my tone. For a moment, our eyes met, and I let her see it, just a flash of what was coming. She blinked, uncertain, then shook her head and walked away. That night, alone in the office again, Carlos had called in sick. I put the final pieces in place. I accessed the company's shared drive and downloaded every piece of evidence I'd collected. 15 years of documentation, all organized into neat folders: financial fraud, sexual harassment, intellectual property theft, witness statements, audio recordings. Then I did something that would have made career content creator Ben Askins proud, who noticed the trend of revenge quitting where workers resign in spectacular fashion to stick it to unfair bosses. I scheduled a very special email to be sent at exactly 9 a.m. Monday morning. But first, I had a weekend to prepare for war. I spent Saturday meeting with my lawyer, Jennifer Martinez, a former EEOC investigator who'd successfully prosecuted 3 Fortune 500 companies for harassment. "This is the most comprehensive documentation I've ever seen," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "You've basically done my entire job for me." Sunday was for logistics. I backed up everything to multiple cloud servers, sent copies to my lawyer, and even placed a physical copy in a safety deposit box. Victoria had taught me well: always have leverage, and always have backup leverage. That Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. 15 years of abuse were about to be answered. The trap was set, baited with Victoria's own greed and arrogance. All that remained was to spring it. Monday, March 18, 2024, 8:45 a.m. I walked into Meridian Financial Group for what I knew would be one of the last times. Victoria was already in her office, on a call with Henderson Industries, probably discussing the implementation of my strategy. Other employees were filtering in, grabbing coffee, discussing their weekends. 8:55 a.m. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up my personal email. My finger hovered over the manual send button. I'd disabled the automatic send, wanting to be in control of this moment. 8:59 a.m. Victoria walked out of her office, heading to the conference room for the Monday morning staff meeting. She walked past my desk without acknowledging me, as usual. 9 a.m. I hit send. The subject line was simple: formal complaint of fraud, sexual harassment, and theft, evidence attached. 15 years of torment, answered in a single click. The email was just the opening salvo. Real revenge, the kind that doesn't just wound but completely destroys, requires strategy, patience, and an understanding of your enemy's weaknesses. Victoria had 3: her reputation, her money, and her pathological need for control. I was going to take all 3. Within minutes of sending the email, my phone started buzzing. The first call was from Martin Hendricks, chairman of Meridian's board. I let it go to voicemail. The second was from HR. Also voicemail. The third was from Victoria herself. I smiled and declined the call. By 9:30 a.m., I was in the conference room with Jennifer Martinez, my lawyer, and 3 senior partners from her firm. We'd rehearsed this moment dozens of times. Jennifer had prepared what she called the nuclear option, a comprehensive legal strategy that would hit Victoria and Meridian from every possible angle. "We're filing with the EEOC today," Jennifer explained to her colleagues, who were reviewing my evidence with barely concealed excitement. "Hostile work environment, sexual harassment, and retaliation. We're also filing a separate civil suit for fraud, theft of intellectual property, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." Recent workplace harassment cases had settlements ranging from $4,000 to $250,000, though this only captures administrative settlements, not court litigation. We were aiming much, much higher. "The financial fraud alone is worth $5.3 million in damages," Jennifer continued. "Add punitive damages for the harassment, emotional distress, lost opportunities, and we're looking at a potential judgment of $15 to $20 million. But money wasn't enough. I wanted Victoria's complete destruction. "Phase 2, I said, pulling out a folder I'd labeled Media Strategy. "Every major business publication in Los Angeles gets a copy of the evidence. Bloomberg, the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal. I've already had preliminary conversations with 3 journalists who are very interested in a story about systematic abuse in the financial sector." Jennifer's colleague, a reputation management specialist named David, nodded approvingly. "The Me Too movement has changed everything. A story like this, with this level of documentation? It'll go viral within hours. Like the TikTok video that amassed millions of views and prompted official investigations, I knew the court of public opinion could be just as devastating as any legal judgment." "Phase 3, I continued, is the client notification. Every company Victoria has worked with needs to know about the fraud. They need to audit their bills, their contracts, their severance packages. If she's been stealing from me and Meridian, she's been stealing from them too." By 10 a.m., Meridian's entire C-suite was in crisis mode. I knew because Robert from IT, sweet Robert who'd accidentally forwarded me that email, sent me a text, "All hell is breaking loose. Emergency board meeting called. Victoria locked in conference room with legal. You're my hero." At 10:30 a.m., I was summoned to Meridian's headquarters. Not asked. Summoned. The email came from Martin Hendricks himself. "Mr. Elliott, your immediate presence is required. Please come alone." Jennifer laughed when I showed her the email. "They actually think you'll come without counsel? After 15 years of documented abuse?" She stood, gathering her files. "We go together, or we don't go at all." The walk into Meridian's boardroom felt like a victory parade. Employees stared from their cubicles, some with shock, others with something that looked like admiration. Word had already spread. The victim had fought back. The boardroom was packed. The entire board of directors, Meridian's legal team, HR leadership, and in the corner, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, Victoria. Her usually perfect makeup was smeared. Her hands were shaking. For the first time in 15 years, she looked afraid. Martin Hendricks spoke first. "Elliott, we've reviewed your allegations. They're quite serious." "They're not allegations," Jennifer interrupted smoothly. "They're documented facts. 15 years of facts, with evidence that would make any jury weep. We'd like to resolve this quietly," Martin continued, ignoring Jennifer. "Surely we can come to an arrangement that satisfies everyone." I stood up. It was my moment, and I was going to savor it. "For 15 years, I began, my voice steady and clear, I've been sexually harassed, emotionally abused, and financially exploited by Victoria Chin. I have recordings of her propositioning me. I have emails showing she stole my work. I have financial documents proving she defrauded this company and its clients out of millions. And you want to resolve this quietly?" I turned to Victoria. "Tell them about the Henderson deal. Tell them who really created that strategy." She said nothing, staring at the table. "Tell them about the Morrison account in 2019. The Tecton negotiation in 2020. The Riverside Health Systems deal last year. Tell them who actually did the work." Still nothing. "Fine. I'll tell them." I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation I'd prepared. "Board members, what you're looking at is a comparison between Victoria's supposed work product and my documented creation process. Email timestamps, draft documents, research notes, all proving that every major success Victoria has claimed in the last decade was actually my work." The board members were scrolling through their tablets, their faces growing paler with each slide. But that's just theft, I continued. Let's talk about the sexual harassment. Would you like to hear the recording from December 3, 2021, where Victoria explicitly propositioned me in exchange for a promotion? Or perhaps the one from June 15, 2022, where she threatened to destroy my career if I didn't comply with her advances? That's enough, Martin said quickly. What do you want? Jennifer stepped forward. Full forensic accounting audit going back 15 years. Criminal investigation into the fraud. Victoria's immediate termination with cause. And a settlement that reflects the severity and duration of the abuse. How much? Martin asked. $20 million, Jennifer said without hesitation. Plus attorney's fees, plus a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, plus a commitment to implementing company-wide harassment training. The room erupted. Victoria's lawyer started shouting about extortion. The board members were arguing among themselves. But I remained calm, standing in the center of the chaos, finally feeling the power I'd been denied for so long. Like the Red Robin case that settled for $600,000 with requirements for third-party oversight and policy reviews, I knew Meridian would pay to make this go away. But I wanted more than money. I wanted justice. There's one more thing, I said, and the room quieted. Victoria's professional licenses. I want them revoked. She should never be allowed to practice in this field again. Victoria finally looked up, her eyes wide with panic. You can't do that. You can't take everything from me. I met her gaze steadily. You took 15 years from me. You stole my work, my money, my dignity. You made my life hell. So yes, Victoria, I can take everything from you. And I will. The negotiation lasted 3 days. 3 glorious days where I held all the cards and Victoria's world crumbled around her. But the real revenge, the truly satisfying destruction, came from the systematic dismantling of everything she'd built. Day 1, the financial avalanche. Jennifer and I arrived at 9 a.m. sharp with a team of 5 lawyers and 2 forensic accountants. We commandeered the large conference room, turning it into what Jennifer called the war room. Boxes of evidence lined the walls. Laptops hummed with spreadsheets and documents. It looked like a scene from a legal thriller, except this was my life, my revenge, playing out in real time. The forensic accountants began their audit immediately. Within 2 hours, they'd found an additional $800,000 in fraudulent billing we hadn't even discovered. Victoria had been running multiple schemes, billing clients for services never rendered, inflating hours, even charging for fictional consultants. Like the EEOC cases that secured almost $700 million for discrimination victims in 2024, including over $469.6 million through settlements, our case was building toward a record-breaking resolution. At 11 a.m., I executed phase 1 of the client notification. I sent personalized emails to the CEOs of every company Victoria had worked with in the past 5 years. The subject line, important information regarding your severance consulting services. The email was professional, factual, and devastating. Dear CEO name. I am writing to inform you of serious irregularities discovered in the billing and service provision of Victoria Chen's severance consulting work for your company. As the actual strategist behind your severance packages, I feel obligated to inform you that you may have been overcharged by approximately 40% for services attributed to Ms. Chen but performed by others. I encourage you to conduct an immediate audit of all invoices and work product from Meridian Financial Group. Sincerely. Elliott, last name. Former senior severance strategist. By noon, Meridian's phones were ringing off the hook. Angry clients demanding explanations. Threats of lawsuits. Requests for immediate audits. The Henderson Industries CEO was particularly furious. He'd just paid $2.8 million in commission for work Victoria hadn't done. Day 2, the media storm. At 6 a.m., the Los Angeles Times business section ran the headline, Major Financial Firm Accused of Decade-Long Fraud and Sexual Harassment Cover-Up. The journalist, Sandra Williams, had done her homework. She'd interviewed 3 former employees who corroborated my story, found 2 other victims of Victoria's harassment who'd been too scared to come forward, and even got a quote from a client who'd suspected something was wrong for years. By 8 a.m., it was trending on LinkedIn. By 10 a.m., Bloomberg picked it up. By noon, #Meridian Scandal was trending on Twitter, with thousands sharing their own stories of workplace abuse. Like the hashtag #QuitTalk phenomenon on TikTok where disgruntled employees broadcast dramatic exits, my story resonated with millions who'd suffered in silence. Victoria tried to do damage control. She hired a PR firm, released a statement denying everything, even did an ill-advised Instagram live where she cried about being victimized by a disgruntled employee. It backfired spectacularly. The comments section became a masterclass in public humiliation. 15 years of evidence doesn't lie, Victoria. Finally, someone stands up to these corporate predators. Check her finances. If she stole from one person, she stole from everyone. The best comment came from someone with the username @SeveredPackage2019. Victoria Chin negotiated my severance in 2019. Always felt something was off. Getting my lawyer involved now. Day 3, the professional execution. This was the day Victoria's professional life officially ended. At 9 a.m., the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing announced a formal investigation into Meridian Financial Group and Victoria Chin personally. The announcement was public, posted on their website and sent to media outlets. At 10 a.m., the National Association of Severance Professionals, NASP, announced Victoria's immediate suspension pending investigation. This was crucial. Without NASP certification, she couldn't practice in most states. At 11 a.m., 3 of Victoria's biggest clients formally terminated their contracts with Meridian, specifically citing loss of confidence in the integrity of services provided by Victoria Chin. But the killing blow came at 2 p.m. I'd saved this for last, savoring it like a fine wine. Remember that package leverage power worth $5.3 million? It turns out Victoria had been keeping detailed records of her kickback schemes, encrypted files on her work computer that IT had recovered. She'd been meticulous, documenting every bribe, every under-the-table payment, every betrayal of her clients' employees. I had IT forward these files to the FBI's white-collar crime division. At 2:17 p.m., FBI agents walked into Meridian Financial Group. They had a warrant for Victoria's arrest and all her electronic devices. I watched from the war room window as they led her out in handcuffs, her perfect image finally, completely shattered. The news photographers were waiting outside. Someone, definitely not me, had tipped them off. The image of Victoria Chin, once the queen of severance negotiation, being arrested for fraud would be on every business news site within the hour. The HR avalanche. While Victoria was being processed, I initiated what Jennifer called the HR avalanche. We filed formal complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, DFEH. The Los Angeles County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. The Better Business Bureau. The American Bar Association. Victoria had a law degree. Each complaint was comprehensive, including all evidence, witness statements, and documentation. The EEOC investigator who called me said it was the most thorough complaint she'd seen in 20 years. Last fiscal year, harassment charges jumped 28% to 31,354, the highest since 2010, with retaliation charges reaching a 31-year high of 46,000. My case would become part of these statistics, but unlike most, mine would end in total victory. The witness parade. By day 3 afternoon, the floodgates had opened. 17 current and former Meridian employees came forward with their own stories about Victoria. The pattern was always the same: harassment, stolen work, retaliation for resistance. Michael from accounting revealed she'd been falsifying expense reports for years. Sarah from business development had recordings of Victoria making racist comments. James from IT admitted he'd been ordered to delete emails that would have proven Victoria's theft, but had secretly backed them up instead. Each witness added another nail to Victoria's professional coffin. Meridian's board realized they weren't dealing with one rogue employee's complaint, they were facing a systematic failure that had been ongoing for over a decade. The settlement. By 5 p.m. on day 3, Meridian was ready to settle. They didn't want a trial. They couldn't afford the publicity, the client exodus, or the regulatory scrutiny. Martin Hendricks personally called Jennifer to negotiate. The final terms. $12 million to me personally for lost wages, stolen bonuses, and emotional distress. $3 million to be distributed among other victims who came forward. $5 million to establish a company-wide anti-harassment program. Victoria's immediate termination with cause, forfeiting all benefits and bonuses. A public apology from Meridian acknowledging the harassment and theft. Agreement to cooperate with all criminal investigations. Implementation of third-party oversight for all HR complaints for 5 years. But the sweetest term? Meridian agreed to send a letter to every client Victoria had worked with in the past 15 years, acknowledging that I had been the primary strategist on their accounts. 15 years of stolen credit, returned with interest. The aftermath of Victoria's destruction was like watching a building implode in slow motion, deliberate, thorough, and absolutely complete. But unlike a demolished building that's cleared away for something new, Victoria's ruin served as a warning to others who thought they could abuse their power without consequences. The criminal charges. 2 weeks after the FBI arrest, the federal prosecutor announced the charges: wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence from her encrypted files was damning. She'd stolen not just from me and Meridian, but from dozens of laid-off employees who received smaller severance packages because of her kickback schemes. The prosecutor, Janet Morrison, called me personally. In 30 years of prosecuting white-collar crime, I've rarely seen documentation this thorough. You built our entire case for us. Victoria's assets were frozen immediately. Her $4 million house in Beverly Hills, her vacation home in Malibu, her collection of luxury cars, her investment accounts, all seized pending the outcome of the criminal trial. The woman who'd flaunted her wealth while stealing mine was now scrambling to afford a lawyer. The industry blacklist. Like the $5 million settlement secured for harassment victims at major companies, my case sent shockwaves through the severance negotiation industry. But the professional consequences for Victoria went far beyond any settlement. Within a month, every professional organization had banned her. The National Association of Severance Professionals, lifetime ban. The Society for Human Resource Management, membership revoked. The American Bar Association, disbarment proceedings initiated. The California State Bar, license suspended pending criminal trial. Her name became toxic. LinkedIn removed her profile after reports of fraudulent credentials. Her published articles on severance negotiation were retracted by business journals. The book she'd written, the one that made her famous, was pulled from shelves when the publisher discovered she'd plagiarized entire sections from her employees' work. The client exodus. Remember those emails I sent to Victoria's clients? They triggered an avalanche of audits. Henderson Industries alone discovered $400,000 in overbilling. Tecton Corp found $275,000. Riverside Health Systems found $380,000. In total, 37 companies identified over $8 million in fraudulent charges. The lawsuit started immediately. Not just against Victoria, but against Meridian for failing to supervise her. The company that had protected her for years was now hemorrhaging money and clients. Within 6 months, Meridian would file for bankruptcy, a casualty of their complicity in Victoria's crimes. The best part? Many of these companies reached out to me directly, wanting to hire the person who'd actually been doing the work all along. I had job offers from Fortune 500 companies, major law firms, and boutique consulting groups. The career Victoria had tried to destroy was suddenly more valuable than ever. The social media apocalypse. Victoria's fall from grace became a case study in modern public shaming. The hashtag #VictoriaChinFraud trended for 3 days. TikTok creators made videos analyzing the case, with one video by @Corporate Karma getting 4.7 million views. Reddit's r/ProRevenge featured my story as their top post of all time, with thousands of comments from people sharing their own workplace horror stories. Like Reddit user u/affectionate_gap8220 who commented on workplace revenge stories, thousands celebrated the justice. The comments were brutal but cathartic. This is why you document everything. 15 years of karma coming due. Beautiful. To everyone suffering under a toxic boss, this is your sign to start collecting evidence. But it wasn't just anonymous internet strangers. Victoria's own social circle abandoned her. The country club revoked her membership after complaints from other members. Her charity boards quietly requested her resignation. The Alumni Association of her precious Harvard MBA program issued a statement distancing themselves from her actions. Her husband filed for divorce within a month, citing irreconcilable differences but really meaning he couldn't be associated with her toxicity. He'd built his own successful career and wasn't about to let her destroy it. The prenup she'd insisted on, to protect her assets from him, now protected him from her debts. The mental health reckoning. While Victoria's world burned, something unexpected happened to me. I fell apart. For 15 years, surviving Victoria's abuse had been my entire life. Planning revenge had given me purpose. But now, with the enemy defeated, I was left with emptiness. And trauma. So much trauma. I started therapy with Dr. Patricia Reeves, a specialist in workplace PTSD. Yes, that's a real thing. You've been in survival mode for so long, she explained, your nervous system doesn't know how to exist without threat. The nightmares were the worst. Not about Victoria anymore, but about being trapped, voiceless, invisible. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., checking my phone to make sure the evidence was still there, that it had really happened, that I'd really won. It took 6 months of intensive therapy to start feeling normal again. To stop jumping when someone touched my shoulder. To stop hoarding evidence of every workplace interaction. To believe that I deserved the success I'd earned. Many experience severe mental trauma and emotional distress from hostile work environments. I was living proof that justice doesn't immediately heal trauma. It just creates space for healing to begin. The ripple effect. My case inspired others. Within 3 months of the story going public, the EEOC reported a 40% increase in workplace harassment complaints in California. The agency director called it the Elliott effect, victims realizing that documentation and persistence could lead to justice. 3 major companies implemented Elliott protocols, systematic documentation systems for employees to report harassment and theft of intellectual property. Business schools started teaching my case as an example of both what not to do, Victoria, and how to protect yourself, me. I received thousands of emails from people around the world. Some sharing their own stories, others asking for advice, many just saying thank you for giving them hope. I started a blog, then a podcast, then a foundation, the Elliott Initiative, providing legal resources for workplace abuse victims who couldn't afford lawyers. The money from the settlement meant I never had to work again, but the work I chose to do now had meaning. I became a consultant, but not for companies, for employees. I taught them how to document abuse, build cases, and fight back. In a strange way, Victoria had created her own worst enemy, someone with the knowledge, resources, and motivation to help her victims fight back. Victoria's final humiliation. The criminal trial began 8 months after her arrest. By then, she was a shadow of her former self. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a cheap suit from Target. The perfect hair was gray at the roots. The confident swagger had become a defensive hunch. She tried to cut a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested in mercy. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 days, calmly presenting evidence, playing recordings, walking the jury through 15 years of abuse. Other victims testified too. Clients testified about being defrauded. Former employees testified about the culture of fear she'd created. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing was brutal: 8 years in federal prison, $10 million in restitution, lifetime ban from financial services. As the judge read the sentence, Victoria looked at me. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes, not remorse, but disbelief. She still couldn't understand how the victim had become the victor. 1 year after Victoria's sentencing, I stood in front of a packed auditorium at UCLA's Anderson School of Management. 300 MBA students, eager and ambitious, waiting to hear from the person who'd brought down one of their industry's titans. The person who'd turned 15 years of abuse into a revolution. Who here has heard of Victoria Chen? I asked. Every hand went up. Who here has heard of Elliott? The same hands, now accompanied by knowing smiles. Good, I said. Because today, I'm going to teach you something Victoria never understood: power isn't about taking from others. It's about knowing your worth and defending it. The speaking engagement was one of dozens I'd done that year. Harvard Business Review had published my article on documentation as self-defense in toxic workplaces. Fortune magazine featured me in their 40 Under 50 Changemakers issue. The irony wasn't lost on me: Victoria had spent her career chasing this recognition, and I'd achieved it by destroying her. But the real transformation wasn't in the accolades or the money. It was in who I'd become. The Elliott Initiative. The foundation had grown faster than I'd ever imagined. With the settlement money as seed funding, we'd hired 5 full-time lawyers, 3 counselors, and 2 forensic accountants. In our first year, we'd helped 127 victims of workplace abuse, securing over $23 million in settlements. Every victory was a small revenge against the Victorias of the world. Our biggest case involved a tech company in Silicon Valley where the CEO had been systematically stealing ideas from junior developers, patenting them in his name. Sound familiar? We helped 12 developers document their innovations, prove theft, and eventually win a $7 million settlement. The CEO, like Victoria, ended up in federal prison. Like the $5 million racial harassment settlement that exceeded previous records, we were setting new precedents for workplace justice. Sarah, one of our first clients, sent me a letter that I keep framed in my office. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, the belief that my voice mattered. My boss had convinced me I was worthless, that my ideas were garbage, that I should be grateful for any job at all. Your foundation didn't just help me win a settlement. You helped me remember who I was before the abuse. Thank you for turning your pain into our power. The unexpected alliance. 6 months after the trial, I received an unexpected visitor. Marcus Thompson, Victoria's former assistant from her early days at Meridian. He was nervous, fidgeting with his coffee cup as we sat in my new office, a sun-filled space in Santa Monica, as different from Meridian's glass tower as possible. I should have spoken up, he said quietly. I saw what she was doing to you. To others. But I was scared. We were all scared, I replied. That's how people like Victoria maintain power. Marcus had come with a proposal. He'd documented his own abuse, 5 years of it before he'd escaped to another company. But more importantly, he'd stayed in touch with Victoria's other victims over the years. There were dozens of them, scattered across the country, all carrying their trauma in silence. Together, we created the Victoria Chin Survivors Network. Not a support group, though we did provide counseling resources, but an activism network. We lobbied for stronger workplace protection laws. We created a database of known workplace predators, legally vetted, of course. We developed training programs for HR departments on recognizing and addressing systematic abuse. The network grew to over 500 members within a year. Our motto, suggested by Marcus with a wry smile, documentation is liberation. The money. Let's talk about the money, because it matters. Not for the luxury or the status, but for the freedom it provided. The $12 million settlement, after taxes and legal fees, left me with about $7 million. I invested $3 million in the Elliott Initiative, $2 million in a diversified portfolio, and bought a modest house in Manhattan Beach for $1.5 million. The remaining $500,000 went into a fund for my own healing, therapy, travel, time to rediscover who I was outside of trauma and revenge. I also did something that would have driven Victoria insane. I published a complete financial transparency report, showing exactly where every penny of the settlement went. No hidden offshore accounts, no luxury splurges, no financial skullduggery. Just honest accounting of how victim compensation should be used for healing and justice. The book deals and movie offers came flooding in. Netflix wanted to make a limited series. Reese Witherspoon's production company was interested in the film rights. I turned them all down initially. The story wasn't ready to be told. I wasn't ready to relive it for entertainment. But then I met Alexandra Martinez, no relation to my lawyer Jennifer, a documentary filmmaker who'd spent her career exposing institutional abuse. She didn't want to sensationalize my story. She wanted to use it to create change. The documentary, The 15-Year War, premiered at Sundance to standing ovations. It wasn't just my story, it featured 12 other workplace abuse survivors, experts on organizational psychology, and even reformed abusers who'd recognized their behavior and sought help. It won 3 awards and, more importantly, sparked a national conversation about power dynamics in the workplace. The love story. You might wonder how someone learns to trust again after 15 years of abuse. The answer is, slowly, carefully, and with the right person. I met Jordan at, of all places, a conference on workplace ethics. They were a speaker too, talking about creating psychologically safe environments. Jordan was everything Victoria wasn't: kind, ethical, genuinely interested in lifting others up rather than tearing them down. Our first date was a disaster. I spent the entire dinner unconsciously documenting everything, writing notes on my phone, saving receipts, even recording parts of our conversation. Jordan noticed, of course. "You're building a case file on our date," they said gently. I was mortified. "I'm sorry. It's just habit." "Don't apologize for protecting yourself," Jordan said. "But maybe, if you're comfortable, you could try to just be present with me?" No documentation needed. I promise I'm not going to steal your ideas or your dignity. It took months to learn to be vulnerable again. To share ideas without immediately copywriting them. To accept compliments without wondering what the person wanted from me. To be touched without flinching. Jordan was patient through it all. They celebrated my victories with the foundation, held me through the PTSD nightmares, and never once made me feel weak for being damaged. You're not damaged, they'd say. You're healing. There's a difference. We married 2 years after Victoria's sentencing, in a small ceremony on the beach. Jennifer Martinez was my best person. Marcus Thompson gave a beautiful toast about phoenixes rising from ashes. And in a moment of perhaps excessive pettiness, we sent a wedding announcement to the federal prison where Victoria was serving her sentence. It was returned unopened, which was somehow even more satisfying. The warning. I still get threats occasionally. Victoria has followers, believe it or not. People who think she was unfairly targeted, who believe her claims of innocence despite overwhelming evidence. They send angry emails, leave nasty comments on my social media, occasionally show up at my speaking engagements to heckle. I document everything, of course. Old habits die hard, and some habits shouldn't die at all. But I also feel sorry for them. They're defending someone who would have destroyed them without a second thought if it served her purposes. They're protecting a predator who saw employees not as humans but as resources to be exploited. Like the JEA headquarters at 225 North Pearl Street in Jacksonville, bounded by Adams, Monroe, Pearl, and Julia Streets, every workplace has its boundaries. The difference is whether those boundaries protect or imprison the people within them. The new Victoria. A year into her sentence, Victoria tried to reach out through her lawyer. She wanted to apologize, to explain, to seek forgiveness. Jennifer called me immediately. She's trying to reduce her sentence, Jennifer explained. Shows of remorse, reaching out to victims, taking responsibility, it's all part of the playbook for early release. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. You sure? Some victims find closure in these conversations. I found closure when she was led away in handcuffs. I found closure when her victims got justice. I found closure when I stopped letting her have power over my life. I don't need her apology. I need her to serve her full sentence. Victoria served 6 years of her 8-year sentence, released early for good behavior. She emerged to find a world that had moved on without her. No job prospects, no social circle, no fortune. Last I heard, she was working as a bookkeeper for a small firm in Ohio, using her maiden name, trying to hide from her past. But the internet never forgets. Every few months, someone discovers who she really is, and she has to move on, find another job, another town, another attempt at anonymity. It's a kind of prison in itself, one without bars but with walls just as real. I don't feel sorry for her. 15 years of abuse earned her every consequence she faces. But I also don't spend time thinking about her anymore. She's a footnote in my story, not the main chapter. The legacy. 5 years after that first email that brought down an empire, the impact continues to ripple outward. The Elliott Initiative has helped over 500 victims and recovered more than $100 million in stolen wages and damages. We've successfully lobbied for 3 new state laws protecting employees from retaliation. We've trained over 10,000 HR professionals in recognizing and addressing systematic abuse. But the real legacy isn't in the numbers. It's in the emails I get every day. Your story gave me the courage to document my boss's racism. I started recording meetings after reading your article. Because of you, I knew I wasn't crazy. The abuse was real. I won my case yesterday. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Like Reddit user u/itsbeen5 whose coffee creamer theft story went viral, sometimes the smallest acts of standing up for yourself can inspire others to do the same. The transformation. I look in the mirror now and see someone Victoria would never recognize. Not because I've changed physically, though the stress lines have faded and the haunted look is gone, but because I've become someone she never thought I could be, powerful. Not her kind of power, built on theft and fear and manipulation. Real power. The kind that comes from surviving hell and choosing to use that experience to prevent others from going through the same. The kind that comes from turning pain into purpose, victimization into victory. I still work as a severance negotiator, but now I work exclusively for employees, never companies. I make sure people get every penny they deserve when they leave a job. I teach them to recognize their worth and demand it. I show them how to document everything, trust but verify, and never, ever let anyone steal their light. My rates are high, Victoria taught me that much, but I offer pro bono services to anyone who's been abused by their employer. It's my way of balancing the scales, one negotiation at a time. The warning to future Victorias. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in Victoria, if you're stealing credit, harassing subordinates, building your success on others' backs, consider this your warning. The world has changed. Victims are documenting. They're talking to each other. They're building cases. As the EEOC General Counsel said, employers have a duty to ensure all employees are treated with dignity. That duty isn't just legal, it's moral. And violations of that duty increasingly come with devastating consequences. Your employees aren't your property. Their ideas aren't yours to steal. Their bodies aren't yours to touch. Their dignity isn't yours to destroy. And if you think you can get away with it because you have power, remember, I had no power for 15 years, and I still destroyed someone who seemed untouchable. The digital age has democratized evidence. Every email leaves a trail. Every meeting can be recorded. Every pattern of abuse can be documented. The only question is whether your victims have reached their breaking point yet. Victoria thought she was invincible. She had connections, money, reputation, and 15 years of getting away with it. She had everything except respect for the humanity of others. And that, in the end, was her downfall. The final lesson. People often ask me if I regret waiting 15 years to act. If I wish I'd spoken up sooner, fought back faster, refused to endure for so long. The answer is complicated. Yes, I wish I'd been spared 15 years of abuse. I wish I'd had the confidence, resources, and support to fight back immediately. I wish I'd valued myself enough to refuse Victoria's treatment from day one. But those 15 years taught me everything I needed to know to not just win, but to help others win. Every moment of abuse became a lesson in what to document. Every stolen idea taught me about intellectual property protection. Every degradation showed me how power systems protect abusers until the evidence becomes overwhelming. I became an expert in workplace abuse not through study but through survival. And that expertise, born from pain, has helped hundreds of others escape their own Victorias. So no, I don't regret the journey, because the destination was worth it. Not just the money or the justice, but the transformation from victim to victor to protector. Victoria tried to destroy me. Instead, she created her own destroyer and a protector for her future victims. The epilogue. It's been 5 years since I sent that email that changed everything. 5 years since I chose to fight back. 5 years since I discovered that the power I'd been seeking outside myself had been within me all along. I'm writing this from my office at the Elliott Initiative, looking out at the Pacific Ocean. Jordan just brought me coffee, in a mug that says "Documentation is Liberation," a gift from the Survivors Network. My phone is buzzing with texts from lawyers, clients, and survivors, all fighting their own battles against their own Victorias. Tomorrow, I'm speaking at the United Nations about workplace dignity and the importance of believing victims. Next week, I'm testifying before Congress about strengthening federal harassment laws. Next month, the initiative is opening offices in New York, Chicago, and ironically, Jacksonville, the city where one of our biggest upcoming cases is based. Victoria's story ended with her destruction. Mine began with it. To everyone reading this who's trapped in their own cycle of abuse, document everything. Trust your instincts. Know your worth. Build your case. And when the moment comes, and you'll know when it does, fight back with everything you have. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not worthless. You're powerful. You just don't know it yet. But you will. Trust me. I learned from the best teacher imaginable, 15 years of hell and one spectacular revenge. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own workplace, if it gave you hope or courage or even just satisfaction in seeing justice served, please share it. Someone in your network needs to hear this message. Someone you know is documenting their abuse right now, wondering if it's worth fighting back. Tell them it is. Tell them about Elliott. Tell them about the $5.3 million secret that brought down a predator. And to all the Victorias out there, comfortable in your power, confident in your impunity, your Elliots are coming. They're documenting. They're building their cases. They're turning their pain into power. Your time is running out. Justice may be delayed, but it's inevitable. And revenge, served cold after 15 years of preparation, is absolutely devastating. Remember, no one has the right to abuse you. Document everything. Know your worth. And when the time comes, fight back with everything you have. You deserve justice. You deserve dignity. You deserve revenge. Now go get it.